This morning's reading is taken from someone who is, as many of you know, one of my favorite contemporary theologians, Anne Lamott. This was a Facebook post of hers on January 14th of this year. I wish my Facebook posts were like this. Let's settle this God thing once and for all. God or no God? Who on earth knows? Any proof either way? None, except for Bach, foxes, forgiveness, elephants, bulbs, and my dog Lily, may she rest in peace. Also, the fact that someone like me could have 28 years without alcohol, or the non-habit-forming marijuana I smoked on a daily basis for 15 years. Also, ripe peaches, books, and Mr. Rogers. There is infinite good and beauty and heroism and artistic genius everywhere we look. Is this proof of God? No, because there is also infinite evil and madness. I am not going to name names. What do we even mean when we use the word God? For the sake of argument, let's say we mean a higher power, a power greater than our thinky thoughts, good ideas, grudges, positions, and opinions. A divine mind, a benevolent intelligence of some sort, some kind of bankable love energy, something that hears us and cares when we cry out in our pain and mortification. But what if the most illustrious atheists and agnostics hear that we actually believe this? What if they say you are ignorant and a danger in public? Well, it would have nothing to do with you. Maybe they are having trouble at work or a spastic colon. So do you actually believe that the soul is eternal? That death is just the end of dying, not of life? Yes. Also, that there is a dessert section in heaven, and that in fact it makes up most of heaven except for the ponds and the gift shop. But we still die, correct? Of course. And the question we ask ourselves is, how do we live in the face of that? How alive are we willing to be? Why do we keep hitting the snooze button? What will it take for us to stop squandering our time? Well, what's the answer? What does it take to get serious about this life we've been given, even if we don't know if God gave it to us or chance? Usually, either a terminal illness or a DUI. Is it legal to believe in evolution and all aspects of modern physics, yet also believe in a personal God, a beloved, a sacred dimension to our lives? Yes, in some states. God died on a cold, raw day in 1974. It was March. I remember the moment that God died for me like it was yesterday. I was riding the bus to high school when I found out that Chris's stepfather had had a heart attack and died. Chris's stepfather wasn't God, but it was his death that killed God. Chris was one of my best friends when I was growing up in Poughkeepsie, New York. He was one of the smartest kids I knew and one of the most hardworking. Chris's life was very different from my own, but we shared some common passions that drew us together. Chris's home life was very different than my own as well. You see, Chris had lost his dad when he was little. He had an older brother who was an addict. I remember him telling me about how his brother used to drink their mother's perfume to get high. His mother remarried when he was a junior in high school. When he was in junior high school. But shortly after that, his mother died. So Chris was left with his alcoholic brother and his stepfather who never loved him and basically ignored him, but thankfully never abused him. Chris had to work hard pumping gas just to have a few bucks to spend on himself. So as if Chris's life wasn't already hard enough, as if it wasn't awful enough to lose your father and then your mother, as if it wasn't bad enough to have a brother who abused you and stole from you, on that cold, gray day in March of 1974, Chris came home from school to find his stepfather dead on the couch in their living room. When I heard the news the next day, God died for me. How could God, who I was taught was goodness and light and love, do such a thing to Chris? How could God, who had control over the entire universe, allow one kid, a good, smart, hard-working kid, to suffer so many setbacks? How could God give Chris such a raw deal? When I learned of Chris's latest tragedy, I knew for sure that God wasn't someone you could count on in a pinch to come through for you. He was more like a cosmic puppeteer who played around with people like so many toys, making them dance to whatever tune he wanted you to, and then he tossed you away when he got bored. I decided then and there that everything I'd been told about God was a lie, and that if God existed, he was a mean and spiteful SOB that I wanted nothing to do with. So God died for me that day. I didn't learn the term theodicy until about 30 years later, but I experienced it when people tried to convince me that there are reasons God would do to Chris what he did, or at least allow it to happen. Why God allowed suffering in the world. Theodicy is the fancy word for all the attempts to explain how we can have a universe where an all-knowing, all-powerful God exists, yet good people suffer and bad people prosper. I watched as priests and nuns tied themselves up in knots to explain how a God who supposedly loves us would stand idly by as bad things happen to good people. None of it made sense to me. It all sounded like rationalization and excuse. No one could convince me that God and evil could exist simultaneously. At least not the God that I've been taught about since I was in 2nd grade. And so I was done with God, done with church, done with religion of any kind. None of it made sense and none of it mattered. I would venture to guess that there are perhaps a few of you here today who have had similar experiences at some point in your lives. Maybe you had a friend like mine who suffered in terribly disproportionate measure, or maybe you have yourself. Maybe the God you grew up with was a harsh judge who condemned your gender identity or sexual orientation. Or maybe you just looked around and saw how unfair all of life is. How, but for the grace of God, as we were told, it could have been us who had been born in a slum in Calcutta or Bangladesh. Maybe you look around you today and see how young black men are dying in our streets and say, no God would allow that to happen. So where does that leave us? Where does that leave us? Where does it leave those of us for whom God has died either long ago or even maybe just yesterday? It certainly leaves us outside the mainstream American culture where Christianity dominates, where we're told over and over again that we'll be saved simply by accepting Jesus Christ as our personal Savior. To all these people, I feel like saying, if Christ died for all our sins, aren't we all set? Why do we have to believe? Our unbelief leaves us, thankfully, outside the holy wars that are being waged around the globe in the name of God, whatever name you call God. We don't have to take sides and fight to defend our own particular brand of God and what he or she supposedly said a few thousand years ago. We don't have to pick and choose between which passages of well and good, but where does that leave us? Where does it leave us? If we don't believe in the kind of God that we were taught to believe as children, what do we believe? What do we believe in? Do we believe in anything at all? We can, of course, hold fast to our unbelief, like Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, and the other so-called new atheists. We can become zealous for not believing. Those who approach their lack of belief with the same evangelical enthusiasm as a fundamentalist Christian. Personally, I reject their confidence, their certainty that they know all the answers, just like I reject those who profess in the existence of God using the, quote, literal truth of the Bible as proof. Perhaps asking ourselves what it is that we believe in is asking the wrong question, or at least putting the question into the wrong framework. If I were to ask you to tell me what you believe, my guess is that many of you could, with a great deal of confidence, tell me what you don't believe. You don't believe in God as the white-haired guy in the sky. You don't believe that heaven is a place where we go after we die. You don't believe that there is a hell where bad souls are punished for all eternity. Or maybe you do, and that's okay. You're welcome here. But to say what it is that we do believe is much more challenging. W.C. Fields famously said, everybody's got to believe in something, and if you remember the rest of that quote, he said, I believe I'll have another beer. But to me, it's hard to say what it is that we do believe, because belief connotes certainty, perhaps a certainty that we're not ready to claim when it comes to these big questions. So what if we were to ask ourselves another question? What if instead of asking what we believe, we were to ask, what sustains you? What sustains you? Or perhaps, what keeps you going when the going gets rough? Or to put it another way, why is it that you get up in the morning? Or what makes your life worth living? Because these are the things that matter, aren't they? The things that are most important. Whether or not there is actually some benevolent being looking down on us from some celestial plane, whether or not there is actually an ultimate reward or punishment in some realm that lies beyond death, whether or not we believe in Father, Mother, Sister, Brother, God, Ultimately, what matters is that we have faith in something that sustains us, something that inspires us, something that grounds us, something that can lead us out of the valley of the shadow of death, whatever kind of death we may be living with. I have faith in the power of beauty. Beauty sustains me. The riotous colors of spring blossoms and autumn leaves. The beauty of a painting or a sunset. The beauty found in nature and the beauty created by the hands of men and women and children. I can't say why or how, but being in the presence of beauty calms my spirit and feeds my soul. Sitting by a stream with the sun dappling the water, I am at ease and untroubled. Poetry sustains me. Beauty for the ear and the mind, I guess you could call it. When words evoke images or call my attention to the gifts of our existence, I find peace and a sense of belonging in the world. A simple poem rearranges my reality and calls me back to who I am and why I'm here. The Patience of Ordinary Things by Pat Schneider. It is a kind of love, is it not? How the cup holds the tea. How the chair stands sturdy and foursquare. bottoms of shoes or toes. How soles of feet know where they're supposed to be. I've been thinking about the patience of ordinary things. How clothes wait respectfully in closets, and soap dries quietly in the dish. And towels drink the wet from the skin of the back. And the lovely repetition of stairs. And what is more generous than a window? I have faith in the power of love. I know it exists because it has sustained me through my darkest times. Constant, unwavering love. Love beyond all reason. This love challenges me to be a better version of myself than I ever thought I could be, yet it forgives me when I fail to rise to the occasion. I am sustained, too, by the knowledge that I am part of something larger than myself. There is more to this world than what I know and what I see, and I am a part of it. The universe won't even utter a sigh when I die, and yet I am here to experience the miracle of life in this moment as it unfolds before me. This makes me feel both humble and powerful. I know I cannot change the course of history, but I can influence my little piece of the planet and maybe some of those around me. I am small, but I'm not powerless. I'm grateful for the gift of life, fleeting though it may be. The pure awesomeness of the world gets me out of bed each morning. The potential each day holds for new learning, new understanding, new experiences, the possibility of encountering the unknown and the awesome. Every day is an opportunity to experience the overwhelming feeling of wow. For all its faults and foibles, social media has broadened our horizons and presents us with minute-by-minute opportunities for awe. This past week, within the scope of a single hour, I saw a video of a surfer riding the pipeline of a 30-foot wave. I saw the look on babies' faces when the cars they're riding in go into tunnels. And I saw a cross-species friendship that told me that we are all connected. Facebook is full of these wow moments, if you can sort through the other stuff. But even if you're not connected to the electronic web, our connection to the web of life offers us plenty of awe-inspiring, awe-inducing, awesome moments. All it takes on our part is a little bit of awareness, opening our eyes to all that is around us. Maybe it's faith, maybe it's belief, maybe it's just my own silly human hope. But I am sustained by the idea that there is something out there that is greater than myself. What Anne Lamott calls a power greater than our thinking thoughts, good ideas, grudges, positions, and opinions. I can't describe it, and I can't even really commit to it, but I take comfort from a felt sense that there is a greater meaning to our lives than we can appreciate or understand. That there is a congruity in the universe that science can't explain. That the thing that we're all a part of makes sense on some cosmic level. Perhaps that thing is hope itself. But my experience of it empowers me to take risks, to yearn for something more, to strive to create more peace within myself and in the world. There is something that calls me to be a partner in creation and not just a bystander to it. This then is my religion. Beauty, nature, poetry, love, awe, amazement, a sense of belonging. My role as a co-creator of the universe. Don't ask me if I believe in God. Ask me why